All right, man. Today is Friday. It's March 4th. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. True Crime Friday is here for you to take you into the weekend. Before we get into it, though, we're going to talk about Roman. Once again, I love getting Roman on Friday nights. It juices me up a little bit more because Roman is the way to go. It's there for you. And, you're sitting there. It's March. St. Patrick's Day is around the corner. Don't be thinking about leprechauns and pots of gold and be like, oh, pot of gold number 1, pot of gold number 2. Don't be doing 99 bottles of beer on the wall with fucking, pots of gold, because there's no reason to do that, because Roman swipes are here for you. It's a clinically proven way for you to last longer in bed. They're effective, they're easy to use, and they're fast acting, but they don't require a prescription. Roman can ship these swipes to you in discreet, unmarked packaging, and each swipe packet is small enough to hide in your wallet for whenever you need it. They're super easy to use. Just take the swipe out of the packet, swipe it on, let it dry. You're good to go. That's it. To get your hands on them, all you got to do is go to GetRoman.com/dogwalk to get your first month of swipes for just $5 when you choose a monthly plan. That's GetRoman.com/dogwalk to get your hands on these. It's a no-brainer, folks. It really is. Month of March, a lot of hanging out, a lot of good things happening. Be stocked up on the swipes for March. Swipes for March. I don't know if that's a saying anywhere else, but it's a saying here. GetRoman.com/dogwalk. Go get your swipes. All right, so here we are. It's True Crime Friday. Like I said, me and TCA. TCA, how are you today?
Never better. We've got another listener suggestion today.
Oh, what do we got?
We are talking about Ryan Jenkins, which I don't think you know, right?
I don't believe so. But
Okay.
like I said, it's always, sometimes you don't know by the name, unfortunately.
It comes back to you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's hop into it.
All right. So Jasmine Fiore was a 28-year-old swimsuit model in the early 2000s. And she was from Santa Cruz, California. Fiore also she was kind of this jack of all trades. She also did work as a body painted model at parties for entertainment. When I read this, I think of have you seen those full body paint where you're actually not wearing any clothes, but it looks like you have an entire outfit on kind of thing.
They've done that with sports stuff, and it looks like they're wearing a whole ass jersey, but no, they're actually naked. It's just painted over.
Yeah, so just as kind of this side gig for parties and entertainment for some extra cash. Now, Fiore wasn't only a model, but she also acted as well. She was seen in this, I quote from our source, adult-related commercials. So take that as you will. She was, like I said, being a jack of all trades, she also had this whole other side to her where actually in 2009, she had her real estate license. She was planning on opening a gym and a personal training facility, just had all these different avenues. Fiore was she was a hot commodity with the men. She had this intermittent but somewhat serious relationship with a man named Robert Hasman. In addition, People magazine actually also noted that a man by the name of Travis Henrich was also seriously involved with Fiore, and at one point they were engaged, but had later broken it off, stayed friends. Eventually, Fiore decided to settle down with a man by the name of Ryan Jenkins. He was a Canadian-born man who had met Fiore, and they eloped in Vegas in March of 2009. Found this little chapel on the Strip, got married. Only a few mere months later, Jenkins was actually charged in Clark County, Nevada, with battery constituting domestic violence. This came after he struck Fiore in the arm when they were having an argument. This argument ensued over, you can argue either Jenkins' jealousy or Fiore's messing around with old lovers, coming around as friends, but still being some way, whether it's as friends or involved in them. Jenkins didn't like this. It was not rare for these two to be seen fighting, so this just kind of was a add fuel to the fire kind of thing. The argument got out of hand. He hit Fiore in the arm, and she ended up actually falling into a pool. Thus, he was charged. Jenkins was actually set to go to trial for this in December of 2009, but that aside, the two of them had kind of reconciled their differences, and they actually had this trip planned together. Now, Jenkins was described definitely as the jealous type. Fiore was kind of the only one that Jenkins had ties to in California, so he kind of latched on a little harder to Fiore than she would have liked. Now, Fiore would allegedly, according to Jenkins and his family's side of things, Fiore would just disappear for days at a time, allegedly lie about where she was going, what she was doing. Again, that statement came from a family member of Ryan Jenkins. So whether it was like actually true or not can be up in the air. Was that him just being jealous, or was she actually disappearing and lying about things? Who knows?
Say? Yeah. For the record, I looked this up. I do know this.
You do?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you're going to get to why, but this is very well publicized.
Yes. Was it?
Yeah.
I did not know this case until somebody suggested it to us. Yeah.
Well, like not like crazy publicized, but at least like, I don't know. I'm sure you're going to, but you know what I'm talking about, right? With him?
Oh, that he was on reality TV?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So this was like the heyday of me watching like MTV and VH1. So I definitely remember this because I think I watched the show and then they canceled it because of this. So sorry.
Because of this case. Yeah. Yes. The show got pulled.
Sorry. Continue.
No, that's okay. He was on the reality TV show. They were kind of like in this like same industry, right? The entertainment industry. This was in California. He had just come off the reality TV show when the two, got together or married or whatnot. And then yes, after this whole case ensued, the show was definitely pulled because this was obviously very bad publicity around it. Now, Fiore's mother claimed that Fiore had the marriage annulled in May of 2009. And again, if you remember, they got married in March. So 2 months later, Fiore got the marriage annulled. Again, they eloped in Vegas in this little chapel on the Strip. So I guess probably not uncommon for annulments to happen. But there were no court records of this annulment. This posed, obviously, an issue. Fast forward to August of 2009, August of 2013 was this like trip that the two of them had planned together. The two of them checked into the hotel in Del Mar, San Diego that they were staying in. They were attending this poker tournament for the weekend there. Now, surveillance footage shows the two leaving the hotel and going to the poker tournament. Leaving the hotel of the poker tournament. So they were staying at one hotel. The poker tournament was at a different one. They went to this tournament, and around 2:30 a.m. that night/morning, surveillance footage shows the two of them leaving this hotel together. They then made their way over to the Ivy Hotel, which was a nightclub that was downtown San Diego. So they leave this hotel around 2:30. They then go to this nightclub. And after this, the last, sighting, if you will, of Fiore was when she was later seen around 4:30 a.m. coming back to the hotel that they were staying at, and she was alone. That was the last recorded movements or last seen movements of her. Now, 24 hours later, Fiore was found dead. Saturday, August 15th, 2009, approximately 7 a.m. in the morning, Fiore's body was found in a dumpster in an alleyway in Buena Park. Her remains which were in a horrific state. They had been stuffed into a suitcase and thrown in the dumpster. That's what I said earlier. I was like, oh, if you remember last week's case, we also had involvement with the suitcase.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I did that back to back, but bringing in the next suitcase, her, and I specifically say her remains because not all of her was there. Her body was in a horrific state. She was so badly beaten. Her body was crushed so badly to where it was clear that what this killer was trying to do was make her unrecognizable. Now, also in this kind of attempt to take away her identity, her teeth All her teeth were pulled out and all her fingers were cut off. Those were not recovered.
Really?
Her teeth and her fingers. There was like tooth fragments in the suitcase, but not like a whole tooth. So this was obviously some sort of premeditated or had some sort of knowledge of like, they can obviously identify her through these things. Due to the state of her deceased body, authorities had to find another way to identify this horribly beaten woman who was found in the dumpster. Now, Orange County Coroner's Office actually stated that, we later find out is Fiore, but that this mystery woman had died only a few hours before her body was discovered. So it wasn't like she had been sitting there for days and yet, like, no. She was put in the dumpster and a few hours later she was found. And she had not been dead that long by the time she went into the dumpster. Now, Fiore's white Mercedes was also found in an abandoned parking lot in West Hollywood, which was about a mile or so away from the penthouse that her and Jenkins lived at the time. So, as far as hiding the car, he didn't go to, super lengths to do that. It was a mile away from where they were staying at the time. Now, in and around her car, when police found it, there was clear signs of a struggle. There was blood, and there was evidence of like hair that was ripped out. So some sort of struggle ensued inside the car. Blood was actually found inside and outside the car, but there were these like handprints and arm prints in blood actually found in the inside in the back of the car. So like against the back windshield and whatnot. So this just like things got out of hand clearly inside the car, but they didn't think that was the scene of the murder, though. It's just a clear struggle ensued there. On August 15th, around 8:55 p.m., Jenkins actually called the police to report Fiore missing. He told police that he last saw her around 8:30 p.m. the previous day, August 14th, at their penthouse in LA. Jenkins told police the two of them went to a poker tournament in San Diego. They came home. When they came home, Fiore dropped off Jenkins. She went out to run errands. She never came home. Again, we have this surveillance footage that they were literally staying at a hotel. So why he said that they like came home, she went to do all this stuff, like clearly was not thought through super well. That next day, August 16th, Jenkins actually spent the day packing up because he was leaving their penthouse and he was going to head back towards Nevada to actually pick up their speedboat. Monday, August 17th, police contacted Jenkins and Jenkins was like, oh yeah, well, I'm actually in Utah and I'm actually on my way back to Canada because I need to resolve some immigration concerns. And they were like, cool. You made it very far in a very short period of time. August 18th, the deceased dumpster body was finally identified as Fiore. So Michael has a lead time of about 3 days to get out of the country before Fiore's body is identified, which, again, due to the state that she was found in, it was clear that he was trying to conceal her identity or throw police off or create this like unrecognizable human being. Now, it was actually, so how police identified her body was she had breast implants and there was this serial number on the breast implants that was able to be tracked back to Fiore. So really a workaround there. Jenkins did not find out until that next day, August 19th, the day after they identified the body as Fiore. His father had called him and told him Fiore had been murdered. Obviously, he already knew this, but Jenkins was the only person of interest in the investigation. This posed a dilemma because he literally told police, I'm going to Canada. He's originally from Canada, so he was like, I've got some immigration issues that I need to work out, get things sorted out. And whatnot. Very convenient time to take this trip. Now, Canadian authorities, so police knew that that's where he was headed. Canadian authorities were notified to be on the lookout for him. On August 20th, Jenkins was officially charged with the murder of Jasmine Fiore, and an arrest warrant was issued for him. Again, Canadian authorities were, they were patrolling for him. They were looking at him. They knew that he was headed that way and they needed to be on the lookout for him. Police believed that Jenkins actually lured Fiore out onto the patio of their hotel room that night/early morning after the poker tournament, after they went out, whenever he got back, and either attacked her out there or at least a struggle ensued out there because there was evidence that something had taken place out there. He then killed her, mangled her body, and stuffed it into a suitcase. Surveillance video from the hotel they were staying at shows Jenkins carrying out clothing out of the hotel room before he left the hotel for good that morning at 9 a.m. This, you can kind of infer that he was getting rid of her belongings so that he could put her in the suitcase. Now, police tracked down his location or his movements after he left the hotel. He actually went to this super remote area where they believed that he may have dumped her belongings, potentially her teeth or her fingers or whatnot, and then proceeded to go to the dumpster, dump her body, and be on his way. Now, there was evidence that he went to some wooded or remote location because there was brush stuck up in the bottom of the car. Unfortunately, justice was not able to be served in this case because that same evening at about 6 p.m., Jenkins and a blonde woman showed up to this hotel in Hope, British Columbia, Canada. The blonde woman, so they pulled up to this hotel and they parked behind the dumpster or pulled up behind the dumpster, and the person working the desk was like, that's really weird that they would do that. Why not park in a parking space? The blonde woman was the one who got out of the car, paid in cash for 3 nights at the motel. They went to their room. All the meanwhile, Jenkins stayed in the car during all these interactions. They went to their room. Guests in the neighboring rooms had noticed that this blonde woman, they got to their room. She stayed for about 20 minutes. She left, didn't come back, was not to be seen again. Not that she disappeared or anything, but she was just there for 20 minutes and then she was gone. Checkout was supposed to be August 23rd. However, Jenkins nor the blonde woman came to check out. So the motel manager and his nephew decided, hey, we need to go knock on the door. We need to check and see what's going on. They actually hadn't seen much movement, coming and going from the room since they got there 3 days ago. So he was like, all right, we need to go check this out. They knock on the door, no answer. They enter the room. They find Jenkins' body, deceased body, hanging from a clothing rack on the wall. He had hung himself with his belt, and he was long gone. There was no suicide note that was left in the motel, but there was one that was found on his computer, dated from August 20th. So the day that they arrived at the motel. In the note, Jenkins confessed his love to Fiore. He stated that he struggled with jealousy and anger in their relationship. He stated that, I loved her, yada, 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 but nowhere in the note did Jenkins mention Fiore's death, nor did he take any responsibility for it. And that really just basically put Fiore's case and police at this dead end. They obviously were not able to bring Jenkins to justice. There was never anybody else that was considered to be the perp in this case. It was very clear that this was, a snap or a crime of passion. Unfortunately, Jenkins' jealousy and anger led to this just absolutely horrific and brutal murder of Jasmine Fiore.
Yeah. So, like I was saying, I remember this very clearly because so they had a bunch of like crazy reality shows back in the day, and there's this girl Megan who did so many of them. She did like Rock of Love. She did, and I just looked it up. She did. You remember Rock of Love?
Rock of Love.
Yeah, with Bret Michaels.
Yeah.
She did that. She did another one called Beauty and the Geek, and I remember she got her own. It was called Megan Wants a Millionaire, and she like it was like The Bachelor, but she wanted a millionaire. So this guy was a contestant,
and that was the show he was on, and he got pulled.
And the show. Episode 3, this all went down. They just straight up canceled the show because he was a finalist. He took 3rd place.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That's right. And that
crazy.
Just, obviously, you can't really air a show after something like that happens.
No,
I mean,
like if he went home early, they'd probably edit it out. But like you take 3rd, like that guy's probably around for a while. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
it's all like
crazy.
pre-done. So it's not like they can like kill him off or something,
Yeah. I had forgot about all of this, but this was definitely a big deal when it, like at least in the reality world when it happened.
Well, MTV, the Rock of Love. I forgot about that show.
Yeah. Great show.
Wow.
Great show.
Wow.
But yeah, crazy. Horrible story, obviously.
Yeah. Really awful story, but the
Craziest like what a crazy person,
Yeah. Extremely messed up person.
Yeah. And to go those lengths and the fingers and everything.
Extreme lengths.
Yeah, he was
both with himself and Fiore, he certainly went way too far with it, but really it shocked me that her teeth and her fingers were never
recovered. Yeah.
Never recovered. Which obviously they didn't need to identify her. They ended up identifying her in a different way.
Yeah,
but
which is interesting. I wonder if that was like one of the first of its kind and whatnot to be identified by your implant and whatnot. But
yeah,
who knows?
I actually heard a case recently on a different podcast about a completely different case. Somebody else was identified. Like another victim was identified by a breast implant serial number. I didn't know they had serial numbers, but I mean, it's quite the workaround way because you think like not maybe at this point like we're a little bit farther down the line of as far as like technology goes where you're not like searching through all the paper and stuff, but police have to find the manufacturer and then go to the doctors and they go like there's a lot of steps to take versus just like getting dental records or running a fingerprint or I mean it's
those are always like fascinating to me as far as like Forensic Files episodes and whatnot, like when they find like the weirdest ways, like the
littlest thing,
the type of wood that was burned, they had this type elevated levels of this, or they had they had this on the bottom of the shoe and it was from this swamp that's only by here, you know what I mean?
Yeah, remember wasn't it Richard Ramirez, the like one type of shoe had been sold in that state, it was paid for like by cash or something, like the crazy lengths that like led back to, or even just the hindsight to connect those two things, right? Like, hey, let's look at the shoe and manufacturing and purchase orders and like things like that. That's where I, especially in today's day and age where it's like almost everything is evidence, especially with how like digital and evident, everything's trackable nowadays, but like literally the smallest thing could be the biggest piece of evidence. Yeah.
And you also wonder that like how many detectives or whoever's on these cases are going to these lengths to solve these things.
Yeah.
And how many are just kind of like, yeah, well, we'll make a few calls. We'll see what we could do.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to see who, really is going, full bore at these things. So
yeah, because you can take a look at like even the David Umquist case that we just covered. If the police were like, oh, it's a suicide, case closed. Like,
yes. Didn't
look further into. I'm sure there was probably little specks of evidence all over that apartment that they didn't look into. It's a lot, especially in California and Orange County. Like we've talked about, there's a lot of cases, more so like older cases, maybe like 70s and 80s kind of thing, where their police department is just crazy corrupt out there, especially like LA Police Department and stuff. So the fact that this case was, properly investigated and followed up on and really got its due diligence was, it didn't have like, wasn't brought to justice really in the end, but they really did their due diligence on it at least.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, all right then. Thank you, Allie.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you everybody for listening. That's it for today. We'll be back on Monday. We will see you then.